everyone, and welcome back to my channel where I challenge myself to make a new dish that I've never made every week. If you've watched my last video, you know that for Lent, I'm going vegetarian, which is definitely a challenge in and of itself. But during Lent, I also wanted to try and up my cake making skills, just for fun. And because who doesn't want to become like a master cake decorator? So for March and a little bit of April, I'll be making lots and lots and lots of cake. This week we're starting with one that my husband requested, a triple chocolate mousse cake. I'm pretty excited, so let's get started. I'll start off by making the chocolate sponge base. And the sponge will start by whipping up some egg whites. We want to whip up the egg whites to stiff peaks because this is basically the only air that's going into this cake. There's no like leavening agents like baking soda or baking powder at all. And I'll add the sugar in 3 separate additions and whipping a little bit after each addition because if you add it all at once, it could kind of hinder the whipping process of the egg whites. When you lift the beater and see that the egg whites don't really fall down, you know you're done. And then I'll add 2 egg yolks and slowly beat them in on low. And then I'll sift in the dry ingredients. And when I'm mixing these in, I'll use kind of a folding motion so I won't get rid of all the air we just beat in. And then we'll take a little bit of the batter and mix it into some milk and oil. The reason why we don't add the milk and oil straight into the batter is the same reason we didn't do any of the other things, to not deflate the egg whites. And then we'll slowly mix that in. Similar to last time, I'm using a folding technique. And be careful not to overmix. And then I'll pour the batter onto a parchment-lined baking sheet. I'll spread it out a bit with a spatula, but this doesn't really have to be any particular shape because we'll be cutting out the cake later. And the cake will bake at 375 degrees Fahrenheit or 190 degrees Celsius for 11 minutes. I'll cut out a 6-inch round from this cake. I'm using the removable bottom part of my cake pan, but I guess you can either freehand this or use another mold if you don't have one. But actually you need to have a cake pan with a removable bottom for this recipe, so just use that. I'll place the sponge at the bottom of a 6-inch cake pan with a removable bottom and brush the sponge with sugar syrup. Now that I think about it, a coffee flavored sugar syrup would be really good here too. And now I'll move on to the triple chocolate mousse part of the cake. And I'm starting by making some custard. Or at least I think it's custard. I'm not entirely sure this is custard actually, but there's just like some deep part inside of me that's telling me that this is custard. So custard it is, I guess. So we're using warm milk here to temper the eggs so that when we heat it up in a second, the eggs won't accidentally scramble. Over low heat, I'll cook and stir this mixture constantly until it reaches 82 degrees Celsius or 179 degrees Fahrenheit. And then when it reaches 82 degrees Celsius, I'll strain the mixture and then cover it with plastic wrap so that the plastic wrap is touching the custard. This will prevent a film from forming on the top of the custard. And then I'll make some whipped cream. I got a lot of good comments last time after my failure with the Swiss roll cake. So this time I'm making sure to beat on high speed and to not lift my beaters until I'm pretty sure it's done. Unfortunately, I went a little bit overboard this time around and whipped this into hard peaks, but you should whip this into just soft peaks if you try this recipe. Now I'll basically do this part 3 times over, once for white chocolate, once for milk chocolate, and once for dark chocolate. First, I'll melt the chocolate over some hot water. You could microwave it if you're gentle, but in my experience, microwaves kind of have a habit of ruining chocolate, so I prefer the double boiler method. And then to the melted chocolate, I'll add 75 grams of the custard we made earlier and mix it in. And then 70 grams of the whipped cream from earlier and mix it in. When you're not using the whipped cream, make sure to put it in the refrigerator so it doesn't fall. And finally, I'll microwave 1 sheet of gelatin for 10 seconds and then add that in also. And that's basically 1 layer of the mousse cake done, so woohoo! I'll put this in the refrigerator for about an hour to set up. I'll repeat this exact same process for the milk chocolate and the dark chocolate layers.
Unexpected love was found. You're the rose in a garden, and it shows if I'm honest.
So this recipe actually doesn't make enough custard or whipped cream to have 75 grams of custard and 70 grams of whipped cream for all 3 kinds of chocolates. Luckily, I did have extra ingredients for custard, but I didn't have the extra cream for the whipped cream, so I had to make do with slightly less whipped cream for the dark chocolate layer. But to finish off the cake, I'll top it with some grated chocolate, and then I'll let this refrigerate overnight.
As we hold each other tight. You're the rose in a garden, and it shows if I'm honest. You're the leaves in mid-August, and I've come out here to say that I love you.
Yay, it's time to eat! I don't know why, but I was super nervous about how this one would turn out, but I'm really happy because I got all 3 layers. and it turned out super delicious! The cake was full of chocolate flavor, but it wasn't cloyingly sweet. But like a lot of chocolate desserts, it's definitely very dense, so share with a friend. But remember when I said there wasn't enough whipped cream for the top dark chocolate layer? Well, that kind of caused the top layer's texture to come out a little bit like dense and hard. It wasn't cake ruining by any means, but you could definitely tell the difference in texture between the top layer and the other two layers. So if you make this recipe, just make sure to make some extra custard and extra whipped cream. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to like and subscribe for new recipes every Monday. And comment below if you have any suggestions about what cakes I should make next. See you next week! Bye!